Bonjour Penguins and welcome to Pat Pank's Cast, the show that dives you into the world as I see it. I'm Patrick, your host, and Tasha is your second host for this podcast collaboration. We're still diving into the extravaganza that is the 2024 Olympics in Paris. However, this time it's going to be through my eyes as a volunteer and through the eyes of another volunteer that did another mission in another location. So without further ado, let's sprint into the wild world of the Paris 2024 Olympics. Stay tuned. This is segment 3 of my podcast. Hello, everybody. Tasha, this is your episode number... You still don't know.
46, I think.
And Teresa is still with us here. Hi, Teresa.
Hi, everybody.
How are you?
I want to take back some of the things I said in part
I
one
know.
and part two.
We're gonna talk about that. We are going to talk about that.
I want to double down on some things, but I do want to take some things back.
Because I remember that in the previous episode you were saying, "Where are the boats? Where are the boats?"
Well, where are the flying taxis, Dave?
Oh.
I never saw one single flying taxi. Not one.
And we have a newcomer. Hi, Jesse. You can introduce yourself and what you're doing.
Hi everyone, my name is Jesse Shan, and I was here in Paris for the whole duration of the month to volunteer for the Olympic Games.
Yep.
And I was working as an Olympic family assistant.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the idea of this episode is to bring the perspective from the inside of the Olympics through the eyes of a volunteer. So obviously, as everyone knows, I was a volunteer. And also it was interesting to get another point of view from someone who worked in another location with a different mission. So that's why it was very interesting for me to have you here on this episode.
Thank you for having me here.
Yeah, you're welcome. And as far as I'm concerned, I was accepted. First of all, let's start by the beginning. I think you too. We have applied to the volunteer program in March 2023. It was a very huge process because what people do not know is that applying and getting admitted and accepted for the volunteering program was not just like a very easy thing to do. We had to go through a test of like 180 questions to describe our, let's say, personality profile. And then also we had a series of questions on our knowledge of sports and what are our preferences when it comes to the different disciplines. At some point, we also had a conference call in the language that they wanted to emphasize on, in order to make sure that whatever we have written in the test and was correct, and also to make sure that our foreign language proficiency is adapted to our mission. So then after that, once we have done all of this, we had to wait a few months in order to get the response. A lot of people did not get anything at all. Some people were put on a waiting list, and others, 45,000, were admitted as part of the volunteer program, knowing that around 400 to a bit more than 400,000 people applied. I mean, I knew that later. To be honest, I didn't know that it was that difficult to be part of this program, which made me more happy. I don't know if you knew that from the beginning, but I didn't know that process was that complicated, and a lot of people got rejected.
I also applied last year. I think I created an account early on, but then, as you mentioned, there was that questionnaire that you have to fill out,
right? And
it was very long. So it took me a while to actually submit the application. I think I submitted the application a week before it's supposed to close. Okay. I just realized, I haven't submitted that. Let me really finish it. Otherwise, I won't be able to volunteer. And I was not thinking that I was going to get selected. Because I first volunteered for the Olympic Games in Rio in 2016.
Okay.
And since then, I have applied to Pyeongchang, have applied to Tokyo, and then Beijing, and never got selected. Yeah. So I wasn't having any high hope to get selected this time. And I was also paying attention to what they officially said. And they said 450,000 people applied, and they only selected 30,000. 10,000 out of that 30,000 is actually international volunteers.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so the rest of that 20,000 is either French citizens or foreign nationals living in France.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I see. That's interesting.
Where are you originally from then?
I was born in a small city near Shanghai. Then when I was in high school, my family moved to Hong Kong. And for college, I moved to the United States. Now I live in New York, but whenever people ask me like, where are you from? It's always been a complicated question.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like Shanghai, Hong Kong, New York.
New York.
Yeah.
Well, when
You're the
you said
citizen
you
of the
applied
world.
to volunteer at all the other Olympics, I was just curious if you lived in one of those places or if, like...
Yeah, I was in Rio for a whole month too.
Okay.
Just like this
Wow.
time in Paris, I arrived a week early and leaving 1 week later. So I get to actually enjoy the city in addition to just working for the Olympic Games.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. A lot of international. I do get it. The love of sports and the love of being part of that international event. But I'm still fascinated by all these volunteers that came without any accommodation in Paris, and they had to find their Airbnb or a hotel, and everything is at their own expense. You were talking about expenses, Teresa, later on before we go live. At least I would live in Paris. Some people do not even
Yeah.
live in Paris, and can you imagine?
But is there support? Is there support for
There
the
are no
volunteers who
support
come
when it
from
comes to
abroad?
accommodation at all. So, yeah.
That was going to be one of my questions because I know they obviously have the Olympic Village for the athletes, but I didn't think the volunteers.
No,
got
we don't.
anything.
We do not. So,
Unfortunately.
but I mean, 45,000, I don't know where and how they would have been able to provide accommodation for 45,000 people.
I suppose it also makes sense because majority of the volunteers are living in France
Yeah.
or French nationals. So
Yeah, probably not Parisians, but yeah.
How did you find your accommodations then?
For
How did
me,
you-
ever since I got the offer at the end of December last year, I've been looking on Airbnb because I know that I want to stay for a longer time. And there's also like a monthly discount for booking a long-term stay on Airbnb. And unfortunately, people were really jacking up the price on Airbnb because they were expecting a lot of people to come internationally to visit Paris. And I think I made a reservation on Airbnb at the peak pricing time
you
in
did?
April, and also booked it because there were no refundable options available. So I booked a non-refundable one. And then mid-June, early July, I was looking at Airbnb again, which I probably shouldn't have done.
You shouldn't have
Yeah.
done.
No, yeah.
Yeah, I was noticing, wow, a lot of these places were way more luxurious than the place that I booked. And for the whole month, it was half the price that I booked.
I see.
And I was locked in for that really high pricing.
Yeah, I
Because
understand.
not only are a bunch of the volunteers coming to town, but this was
all
the
the
first
tourists.
Olympics
Yeah.
post-COVID that actually could have a crowd. So I'm sure it was just
It was
huge
packed.
influx
It was
of
packed. A
people,
lot of
yeah.
tourists, a lot of people. We are going to talk about it, how successful these Olympics were. And we are going to ask a lot of questions to Teresa, obviously. And
she had no faith in Paris.
Okay, because she had no faith. Just for you to know,
Yeah.
Teresa was very, pessimistic when it comes to these Paris 2024 Olympics. And I really wanted to invite her. I wanted to make sure she's here
Yeah.
in this episode 15.
Yeah, Tarisha, I think we're the same kind of people.
Oh,
'Cause,
okay,
You
so-
know, when you're pessimistic and you don't expect anything to work, then when they actually work, you're pleasantly
yeah,
surprised.
Yeah. So then we got accepted, and then sometime in July, I went to take my accreditation and my uniform, which you're seeing looking at the video, because this episode is filmed, so you can also watch it on YouTube and Spotify. The volunteer uniform, it became worldwide known, especially for the hat and your. Tasha wanted the hat,
I
but
want the hat so bad. If someone has a hat and you don't want it, but I'm not spending
the Bob hat
$500
became
on it.
worldwide famous, and as well
Yeah.
as the rest of the uniform, which is really pretty. I don't know you, but I really love it. We had 4 t-shirts, 2 pants that become shorts also if we want to. They are adaptable. We had 1 jacket, and underneath the jacket we had like some sort of a...
Yeah,
you know,
it's essentially there's a vest and then you can add the sleeves onto it
Right.
and
Yeah.
transform it into a jacket.
into a full jacket.
Yeah.
Correct. We had 4 pair of socks, a pair of shoes, which were very comfortable, by the way, and the famous hats. And also we had 2 bags, the big bag where all of these were inside, and then we had a smaller bag that we would be able to carry during our mission, which was a smaller one that you can, attach to your shoulders or to your wrist. That's it. So we got that and we can keep it. And obviously I'm keeping it. A lot of people probably we would be selling it, which I don't understand why. For me, it represents a lot of memories. It has such an importance that I could not give it away or sell it to anyone.
Yeah. Oh, did you mention the
so
4 pairs of
sentimental.
socks?
Yeah, I did mention the 4 pairs of socks, 2 blue pairs and 2 pink pairs.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, which a lot of people were like wearing one blue and one.
I did see
pink.
that the
Yeah.
mismatched socks. Yeah,
I was doing that
noticed.
as well.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, you saw me doing that. I was doing. I was part of
brand
these
were
people.
What brand were the shoes?
All of the volunteer uniform is from Decathlon. It's a sporting brand in France
Okay.
that is very known. Probably not worldwide, probably not in the US. But yeah, it's very famous. They produced it and they gave it away to the volunteers. Yep.
I
so
do like that.
This is the
for
logo of the
Paris-
company. Decathlon,
Yeah,
which
I do
is
like for the
awesome.
Paris Olympics that they went with a French company because I remember Team USA one year, our outfits were made somewhere else. Yeah, they were made like in China or something, and we were like, really? We couldn't get an American to
Yeah.
make our stuff?
No, it's
like,
made- yeah.
what?
To be fair, the volunteer uniform in Rio was also made by a Chinese company.
So go France.
Well, but it's a French company, and the other one or whatever, but they probably made them still in China.
Well, no, it's made in
possible,
France.
yeah.
It's
Oh,
made in
really?
France. It's
Wow.
literally.
All of this-
It's written.
Really?
It's written on it. Made in France. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
nice.
And then we took the accreditation, we took the uniform, and then what my first ever contact to the Olympics as a volunteer was the training program, was the training day. Did you have a training day in your mission? Can you
Yeah.
remind us of your mission exact? So let's start by that.
Yeah, so for Olympic Family Assistance, our main location is at the Olympic Family Hotel,
Okay.
and there are 3. There's the Hyatt Regency Étoile, Le Méridien, which is across the street from the Hyatt.
Yeah.
And then there's Le Collectionneur. And the Hyatt is connected to
Yeah.
Le Palais des Congrès,
Le Palais des Congrès,
which
yes.
is where the main press center is.
Yeah.
And that's where the volunteer center of all the Olympic family hotel volunteers are.
Oh, it was there.
going.
Okay.
Yes.
Because for us, I was on a competition venue, and every competition venue had a volunteer center. However, you guys, for the Olympic family, you had one volunteer center, which is in the Porte-Maillot Palais des Congrès. Okay. My mission, I requested and I got accepted in the diving discipline. So I was based in the Olympic Aquatic Center, which is the only building that was built specifically for the Olympics. All the rest of the competition venues are venues that were already existing, part of the French landmarks.
Reduce, reuse, recycle.
Or
Yeah.
recycled.
But
And
it makes
also,
way more sense than
and
building a bunch of new stuff. For
yeah, exactly.
yeah.
And especially a lot of the competition venues, which made the Paris 2024 even greater, were landmarks. So it was really very beautiful on the TV to see these sports events happening in worldwide famous landmarks. So yeah, it was really good. So as for me, it was a new building, the Aquatic Center, facing the Stade de France Stadium, which is the main stadium where the closing ceremony was held. So the Aquatic Center hosted 3 disciplines, the diving, which I was part of, but also water polo, and also artistic swimming, which for me was very nice to see because I've, also
so cool.
So cool.
Yeah.
I mean, and my mission, it was literally called Sport Information Team. So my mission was at the front desk, which is the Sport Information Desk, at the entrance of the athletes. So whenever the athletes arrive, as soon as they arrived to the venue, I was the first person they would see on the venue on site inside the building. So they would be able to ask their questions, if they need any directions, if they need anything in specific for their day, any kind of information. I would be here to answer their questions and also tell them that their training schedule is from this time to this time, their competition is here and there, and so on. So all of the logistics, any kind of question that they have, or all kind of information that I have to give to the athletes. I was able to do that from this desk, from my mission at the entrance of the athletes. So I really loved my mission because it was really at the entrance. I would see all the athletes coming in and coming out.
I was just going to ask you a question because I didn't realize they had a place for the Olympic families.
Yeah,
Do
so
they pay to stay there, or is it just part of going?
yeah,
you know.
they call them Olympic family, but what they really mean by Olympic family is all the presidents and the secretary generals of each nation's National Olympic Committee, because they're not the
So it's not the
athletes.
actual family.
Yeah, it's not the family relatives of the people. Although I think some people do bring their spouses. Most it's just the important dignitaries who are staying. Yeah.
Oh wait, you had a fancy job. This is a fancy job. Wow.
That's what I thought too. Because for Rio, I was working at the diving venue and was working as an event service volunteer, and I enjoyed it thoroughly in Rio. But I wanted to do something different for Paris. So originally I was thinking if I received a similar offer as I did in Rio, I probably wouldn't come just because how expensive everything is. And then I saw that they gave me this. And I was thinking, okay, this looks intriguing. Assisting a president or a secretary general of a National Olympic Committee, seems like a really important and fancy position. So I came here and...
Tell us.
Yeah.
Was your security clearance higher than everybody else's? Because was your security clearance higher than everybody else's?
No, we all got background checked.
Yeah,
we definitely all got
with the dignitaries and presidents and stuff. I feel like that's
actually security-wise. I think I don't even have as high of a security clearance as Patrick did.
Because we are on the competition venues, literally.
You don't think they would have went after the people in charge?
The people in charge they have their own security. I mean, they don't need anybody from Paris 2024. I mean, and also French security forces were literally everywhere. I've never seen that many security officers in my entire life as much as I did during these 3 weeks.
Right.
So they don't need us. They don't need the Paris 2024 security clearance to ensure their safety. However, if you're in a competition venue, then definitely everyone who is working in that competition venue have to be cleared 100%. I've heard that everyone went through background check from A to Z.
Yeah, and I think there's probably a difference between general access and actual clearance into certain zones. Because I think on your accreditation, you have a blue stripe.
Yep, I do.
Yeah, and you also have certain numbers like 246, those
correct.
things. Yeah, which I don't have.
Yeah. The blue stripe, that's for information, that allows me to enter the field of play, literally, by the pool where the athletes are competing. And the numbers is also, they have specific clearance. They have a specific clearance matrix, but yeah.
Yeah, and for me, I can access venue's spectator area, but I can't get into protocol operations zones like that.
Yeah.
And I don't know with the red stripe.
The red stripe would allow you to enter the venue and probably the spectator area and some areas, but would not allow you to enter the field of play. So when you have a blue stripe, it means you have access to everything. Yeah. And when you have red or white, it means they have lower access fees every single time.
Yeah, I just had the white.
So the white is the lower when it comes to the competition venues. But you probably had access to more things. Like, for example, you had access to the Olympic Village, which I did not.
Right.
So it's really
Was it just 3 colors?
3 colors and 6 numbers, if I remember well.
Yeah.
And the 3 colors are, did you say red, white, and blue?
No, not the American colors.
France.
And it's not red, white, and blue. It's blue, white, and red.
Sure it is.
Your patriotism is like on fire, Patrick.
I'm gonna be cutting this because I have my American listeners are increasing. I have 23% now. So I'm gonna be cutting this.
Yeah.
Oh, but I'm live on Instagram. Forget this.
We're totally aware that we're not.
You're live on Instagram.
Forget you saw anything.
Forget what I just say.
Yeah,
this will be cut in the editing.
I'm leaving it in on mine. So.
Yeah, and in addition to the numbers, there's also letters because I had the R on my accreditation, and I've seen some people with the O letter.
And I've seen people with the A, and A is for athletes. O and R, I don't know. Yeah, numbers, letters, and the color of stripes. All of these were part of your access control. And it was really done depending on your mission, which I think was really very well done. Since I was at the entrance of the athletes, I had a lot of people trying to get in. Entrance of athletes equals number 2. If you don't have number 2, whatever the color of your stripe is or whatever, if you don't have number 2, you do not enter from the entrance of the athletes. So I had a couple of times where I had to stop people and tell them not to enter. even though I had a security guy which was also doing this, but I had to do it also a couple of times myself, but not more than that, which I would have felt like I would be doing this the whole day. But it was definitely, it was really very well organized to a point where I didn't really have to do it more than twice during the 3 full weeks. So everybody knew what were their access rights. Everybody knew where the entrance for his accreditation was. So it wasn't a mess at all. Not in the aquatic center, at least. I don't know if you guys had people trying to come in without their access rights or...
It's kind of complicated because for our official duties, we do have to accompany the dignitaries and the officials that we're assigned to. But we're supposed to inform the person who's in charge of the venue when we're accompanying our dignitaries or officials, and then once we're there, we'll hand them over so that they will be able to sit at the Olympic family area in the spectators area, whereas us will have to maybe wait for them in the volunteer lounge or maybe just stand there.
So you can stand in the spectators area and see the competition. Were you able to do that? Because we were told when I did a mission on the spectators side, we were told that well, if they are not wearing their volunteer shirt and just facing the camera, and they are not like a bunch of people gathering, just like one, we can allow them. Or else we have to see their accreditation and tell them to wait outside.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're entering that kind of gray area, right? Officially, no. But we also are given that access, right, on our accreditation. So I think it really comes down to if you are fulfilling your volunteer duties, and if you are, whether you're respectful, if you are actually also watching the competition. Because I know maybe if we're there but only watching the competition while we're waiting for our dignitaries, then maybe we should change into just plain clothes instead of volunteer clothes. So, general spectators don't see that, these volunteers aren't doing anything. They're just there watching the games, when maybe we're just there to wait for our dignitaries until they are done at the venue. Also, at the same time, I think because there are a lot of us at the Olympic Family Hotel, and some of us are in a shared pool. Not everybody is like me who has an assigned delegation or country. So I think some people definitely...
Who was that, by the way? Who was your assigned delegation?
I was assigned to Hong Kong. I was assisting the Secretary General of the Hong Kong NOC. Other volunteers were in a shared pool, so they get assigned to different dignitaries every day. I do think some volunteers will abuse it. So, and especially for those really popular events where there aren't that many vacancies on the stand or seats, maybe it's not a good idea to go. I generally avoid all of those really popular events anyway.
And we were told, if you find a place, then why not? It's not encouraged, but why not? As long as you're in civilian, which I think made sense, because during the competition, really at the front desk, we do not have any athletes going in and going out, because they are either competing or watching their colleagues competing. So they are in the seats of the athletes that are reserved for the athletes in the spectators area. So we don't really have a rush at that during that hour and a half or 2 hour competition. So we might just as well change, put that civilian shirt and go and find ourselves a seat and watch the competition. And obviously we would keep somebody, like if we are two in my case, in the sport information desk, then we would split, and then there you go. Where both of us are happy because we watched the part of the competition, while not bothering anybody because the seat is there and it's free, Right. And that
was going to be one of my questions, since you said you had access to spectator area. Like, could you use that access at another venue to be in the spectator area, or just at the diving center?
No, every volunteer has access to a site or 2 sites or all sites. I guess you had access to all sites.
Yeah, I had access to all competition venues.
Because, this is, for example, an advantage on his side, because he was able to go to any spectator area of any venue. depending on if his delegation wanted to go there or not. Obviously, if let's say his delegation wanted to go and watch swimming, then he would be able to go to the spectator area of La Défense Arena. So he would be able to see that venue, and then probably also if the delegation wanted to see another discipline, then he would have had the opportunity to go and see another venue. I was only dedicated to the aquatic center. I was only allowed to go in the venue of the aquatic center and not any other venue at all. However, I had much more access in the aquatic center than he does.
Yeah.
Some people were only assigned to the aquatic center but did not have access to any of what I had. Like, for example, volunteers that were working in transportation. A very big shout out to them, because they were standing outside when it was raining, when it was sunny, when the heat was like 36 degrees Celsius, because they were there waiting for the buses, and it was not always easy to manage the arrivals and the departures of the buses. But however, these poor people in their accreditation, they did not have the access to enter anything. Not even the building, because their position is outside waiting for the buses.
They had to go to the bathroom.
Yeah, obviously there were exceptions, but they were being.
They just go in the sun, right?
No, they.
That's why that lady from the triathlon got sick.
Yeah.
Oh
So I was very lucky to have access to the field of play and to the entrance of the athletes, and even had for a short time access to the media center, because I was also assigned for one day, exceptionally, I was assigned a mission for anti-doping. So my mission was to actually accompany an athlete from the water polo discipline from the minute he leaves the water to the minute he enters the lab and gives his sample
Yeah.
to the lab.
I actually don't know if they draw blood or take urine.
Urine. Yeah, I was there. I know.
Okay.
So you really have to follow him, and you do not have to lose him from your sight. And that's the regulation. Even when he changes, or he or she, it depends. Like if it's a male athlete, it's a male volunteer. If it's a female athlete, it's a female volunteer. So I followed a Spanish athlete from the water polo team. He was really nice. He was following the rules, because when I first tell him you were randomly selected for anti-doping testing, so some athletes would be like, oh God, no, not now, not here, I'm tired, blah, blah, blah. So no, he was okay. And I listed the rules, like no shower, no going back to the pool, no drinking more than 2 bottles of water. Apart from these, he can do whatever he wants. He can go and, speak to his family. He can go to the media. And this is why I was saying I got this media accreditation very specifically during that day, because I needed to follow him wherever he went. And it was very possible that he would go to the media center, which we call the mixed zone, where we have the broadcasting TV interviewing the athletes after every competition. And there's also another zone for press, which is the written press, where they would ask their questions as well for the athletes. I had to follow him in these zones, so I had to have this accreditation to go inside the mixed zone, where the press are. I also did another anti-doping mission with a Japanese athlete. Also very nice, because I've heard that some athletes might be a pain in the. Mine were really very nice. The Spanish guy went to the spectators area and started making out with his girlfriend. And I had to watch this.
Stand there and watch.
Yeah, I had to stand there and watch.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
You know what? Okay, here's what I feel like I would have done. Like, if you came up to me and you were like, hey, you got randomly selected, blah, blah, I'd be like, can we just go now and do it so you can stop following me around? Like,
yeah, well, they did not. They were like, okay, we'll do that whenever I arrive to the lab zone. But before that, from the pool to the lab zone, to the exit, they have a very specific path to go through. Like they have to first go and take their accreditation, then go and take a towel. And then there's a first mixed zone in the field of play area. And then they have to go through the broadcast. Then they have to go to the journalist. Then they can go to the shower if they are not anti-doping selected. Specific one-way route that they have to use, and at the very end the anti-doping lab is at the very end of this route. So
they would show up in the morning, let's say, and it was like, you've been selected today, so then it's like,
no, they would not show up. I would tell them that they are selected at the end of the competition. They finish the competition, they get out of the water, They think that they're done and that they could go and have some rest. But no.
No, surprise.
No, there will be a volunteer following them.
And I guess, yeah, there's usually like you have to do the press and the this and the that. But I feel like I would have just been like, can I just go pee in a cup now and get this over with?
Yeah,
like, I'd want to just get it over with.
The Japanese guy did that. The Spanish wanted to live his life and go check on his girlfriend before.
But he's Spanish, babe. Spanish.
Yeah. But the Japanese was like straight, following the route. Very efficient Japan. So it made sense. Spanish going round and round and round.
Like,
So does that mean that every single venue has its own testing lab?
Yeah. The testing lab for our venue was common to all three disciplines, obviously diving, water polo, and artistic swimming, because anti-doping does not have to be specific to a discipline. But yeah, every venue has to have anti-doping, because you should be able to test the athlete within 2 or 3 hours after the end of the competition. Like
keep your eye on him.
Keep an eye on him. The Japanese guy, for example, athlete had a team meeting after the competition, so I had to wait until all the members of the team were there, and then the coach was there, and then they did their team meeting. It took 15-20 minutes. I had during these 15 minutes to keep an eye on my Japanese athletes.
Yeah, make sure nobody slipped him a cup of pee.
Exactly, that nobody gave him anything, and he didn't give anything to anybody, or he didn't have
we
any.
We all know what Lance Armstrong did. We know. We
that he did not have any interaction with anybody at all.
only Americans do doping, no?
Well, in Russia.
Well, they weren't even here this time, so
because they got caught. That's why. Well, it was political
and
and
Ukraine,
a doping scandal. Yeah, it was political and a doping scandal is why they.
And because their gymnasts are like 9, no?
So yeah.
No, I thought it was the Chinese that lied about ages of some of their gymnasts one year.
I feel like all of them probably do, no?
I do like the change in gymnastics, though. Like, especially, I know we'll probably get to this later, but especially Team USA, it was like the oldest team we ever had.
Their name was Golden Girls, no? They named themselves Golden Girls.
And I was like, thank God, because we don't, these like 15-year-olds and stuff, like, let's let people mature a little bit. Can we? Like, I don't know. It just seems like a lot.
And they can still play. No.
Yeah.
I was like, we're still young, we're still fresh, we can still make it to the Olympics, guys.
Yeah.
Okay, anyway, sorry, I got on.
And swim in the Seine River.
And swim in the You go ahead first, babe.
You're still not reassured.
That lady got a bacterial infection and she couldn't compete.
Oh,
and one lady, I should have found the quote. It's probably the same lady, but she was like, I could have swore I saw brown things floating. I just hope it's not what I thought it was.
Yes, they were like, we went underwater and I saw things I should never have seen. Like, hello.
Yeah, she said that.
Well, there was
not aware of this.
Like you said, there was that whole Facebook event that you guys were all gonna go poop up river.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
In the end, they did super discreet, super demure. And Hidalgo, she didn't say anything to anybody, and she just was all of a sudden boop, in the sin.
Well, and I loved that we had that conversation like on a Saturday, and then because you guys were saying she hasn't swam in it yet, and blah blah blah.
And then
it was like 3 days later. I was like, oh, she did it. She did it.
But there was the sports minister who did her big whatever the fuck she did, where she just rolled down in an embankment.
The sports minister was ridiculous and hilarious. Yeah.
And then Hidalgo was like, I don't want that to be me, so I'm just gonna like take a private boat. And just like
her dip in the water was really very successful. I mean, she like swam. Like she was like.
Did she get her hair wet? Did she go all the way?
Yeah, she did.
Oh, okay.
She did. Yeah. She was.
She looked very classy. Very classy.
Very classy and very professional.
And then she probably got a rash. Mindful. Yeah, exactly. Then she probably got a rash. But
come on. Yeah.
Hello? Go ahead.
Oh my gosh, that's funny.
So yeah, let's go back to the volunteer. So, I had this anti-doping mission. I also had a few missions apart from my main mission, because as a reminder, my main mission is at the entrance of the athletes, as I said. But I had some side missions from time to time, because our manager was nice enough to rotate us so that we don't get bored a lot. So I also had a lot of missions on the field of play, which were for me the best missions. My mission was really nice. I really loved it. But also being on the field of play was really something. Like I really loved these experiences, because you were literally in the middle of the action. I had to prepare the field of play several times before the competition, either cleaning or arranging the chairs or even removing the plastic films from the floor because it's a new building. So we were commissioning the building at the same time. Plastic films were still protecting the floor. So I had to remove the plastic films from the field of play and also
brand new.
Yeah, brand new. And also from the backstage behind the screen that you all saw, the screen that opens and from which the athletes were coming in the aquatic center. That was one mission. Another mission was to, during the competition, actually look at the 10-meter platform where the divers were diving and see if, for example, a diver would use a towel and put it on the edge of the platform so that he doesn't slip while diving. So whenever I detect that the diver is actually using a towel, on my push to talk, I would send a message to the diving team saying that, for example, a towel was used, and another volunteer would go up to the 10-meter platform and remove the towel after the diver has dived. And before the beginning of the competition, I had the mission to go up to all the platforms, especially the 10-meter platform, and also remove all the towels that were here and there from the training session that was before the competition. It was really interesting to do that because I was literally on the platforms and I was looking at the venue starting to be more and more crowded with the spectators, and I was there on the 10-meter height doing my job. So it was really very impressive, being there. Especially,
I can just imagine you being like, there's a towel, get the towel.
Yeah.
With your walkie-talkie and headset.
I had a walkie-talkie. I had a PTT. We call that a PTT. I had it for this mission, but I also had it during my main mission at the entrance of the athletes, because whenever, for example, I had a question that I couldn't answer, we can communicate on WebEx, which was our official instant messaging platform. But let's say the managers probably would not look at their phones the whole time, so I would send a message to this person through the PTT. So I was allowed to have a PTT because I had the use for it and made me look professional. So it's nice.
And very important.
Made you look very important. But yeah, it was very useful, obviously. Every morning we receive a paper in the sport information desk listing everything that was going to be done at the second, à la seconde près, we say in French, fine-tuned to the second. It was very well organized, and I had a mission at some point also to log, to take this paper and write down on the right side, on the right column, the real time and compare it to the planned time.
Yeah.
And whenever there's a 15-second delay, I had to mention why there were 15 second delay. So we were really working on the second, so well organized. So I was really impressed.
It makes sense because it's being broadcast in so many different networks and all over the world that they have to plan for commercials and when to do this and that, and
True.
It makes sense.
Exactly. So it was really impressive to be able to do that. I love doing my job, from the sport information desk to all the different missions that I got. I really liked it. What about you? What is your experience, and what is the most the best thing that you've done?
Tell us about Hong Kong.
Yeah.
Do you want to still talk about the training?
Sure. Because it was really very well done. So whether it's on the platform, online or on site. So please go ahead.
And also it kind of is related to what we actually do day to day. So I attended the training session that was the Tuesday before my first mission, and I went there, and there were a group of volunteers who were just showing us around, the Le Méridien is across the street. This is the Hyatt Hotel. This is the hotel lobby where a lot of people are just resting and taking a break. And then they took us across into Le Palais de Congrès and took us to the volunteer lounge, the volunteer center, and showed us what to do and what is available to us. And then after that, we had another 2 hours of sit-down kind of seminar style training. And as I mentioned to you, that group photo we took at the training day is the only group photo we ever had, because unlike many other competition venues and missions for Olympic family assistants, each dignitary or official is only assigned one volunteer. And if we're assigned to them, then we are with them from the beginning to the end of the Olympic Games. So we don't really work as a team with other volunteers. doesn't prevent us from, socializing and getting
And
to know other
meeting
people and
through probably the volunteer center.
Yeah, at the volunteer center, especially, if your dignitary or your official doesn't contact you that day because either they are doing their own thing and they don't really have any use for an assistant, or that they just forgot and they're going to a particular venue on their own, you might just end up having a free day. Unfortunately, I think more volunteers were feeling underused than the organizing committee expected.
Okay.
Because there were also shared pool volunteers, as I mentioned earlier, who don't really have a particular delegation that they're always with. It's different from day to day, and not all of them gets utilized on a daily basis. And for some of us who are assigned a particular delegation, not every single day that we have a shift do we actually have something tangible to do.
Yeah, I see.
If that makes sense.
Do they tell you that in advance, or do you show up and your guy is disappeared?
Yeah. So at the training, they told us you will get your agenda for the first 3 days of your shift. And after that, the shift hours that shows up in your volunteer portal online, that's not actually accurate. The actual timing is determined between you and your dignitary.
Okay.
Yeah. So it really comes down to the person that you're assigned to. If you're assigned to a really amazing person, then you'll have one hell of a time. If you are assigned to a person who doesn't really, stay communicative, it's kind of difficult to track them down.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
So they could go to events without you? Like it wasn't required for them to have a volunteer
I think it's
person all the time?
Because if they are with a volunteer, then they need to, if they're taking an official bus or a taxi to the venue, then they're required to bring that volunteer with them. So if they really don't want to, they just don't let the volunteers know, if that makes sense.
Oh, but they are allowed to enter the venue without the volunteer.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, well then if things had to change in the future, there should be a rule so that every single delegation would have to enter a venue with a volunteer.
Yeah. It should be like that.
They make the rules. They're like, no, we don't care.
Yeah. It should be like the anti-doping thing. Like, we got to be with you all the time.
I bet these people are like, get off me.
I mean, I think that's kind of what they hate, right?
Yeah.
They don't want to be accompanied by a person all the time, especially if they are not kind of vibing with the volunteer that's assigned to them.
Yeah.
And also, I think some of the bigger countries like the United States or China, they have a huge team and they have a lot of officials that come and stay at the hotel. They usually bring their own assistants.
Yeah.
So they don't really have any use for Olympic family assistants that are volunteers.
Probably in the future, they should ask the delegation if they need a volunteer or not. If they would, if the delegation say, no, we don't need a volunteer, we have everybody in-house, then no need for a volunteer. Because
as a volunteer assistant, you'd like arrange the rides and things like that? Or what exactly did you do for them?
Our job is to assist on two fronts. One is the logistics, one is the linguistics. So the logistics, because the Hyatt Regency Etoile has the Transport Connect bus terminal. So if the officials and dignitaries wants to take the bus, we can look up the schedule for them. If they want to take a TX taxi or car to particular venues, then we can make a reservation for them. And if they need us to translate certain things for them when they're kind of socializing among themselves, talking to another delegation, another country whose language they don't speak, then I can be of help.
Yeah.
I was just going to ask, was there like a universal language that was used most of the time, or was...
It's definitely French.
Yeah.
And that's when I think I encountered most challenges, because I could say, comment allez-vous, ça va bien. And when they usually respond something back to me in French, that's more complicated than that. And if it's a really urgent, like we have to have an efficient communication, then they're going to have to like switch to English, because that's something that I'm more fluent in.
But that's weird, because in the aquatic center, I mean, our training was done in English. Our managers were fluent in English because we had volunteers English-speaking volunteers. So I didn't really feel like they were left aside or they were not understanding anything, because when needed, these managers would talk in English. So yeah, it's weird, especially that in your case, it's, Olympic family delegations that are literally international. So it made more sense to have you guys, have your managers be able to speak English much more than ours. I don't know. It made more sense for me.
Yeah. That's why I was curious, because like you said, there's volunteers from all over. So I didn't know, but it is in France. Like I understand some expectation to speak some French, but I wasn't sure if there was a
part of the point of assisting the dignitaries and officials is that, if they don't speak French, then their assistants can. But it's not like that I really got utilized for that aspect that often.
I see.
Gotcha.
Were you put with the Hong Kong delegation because they speak Chinese? They speak Chinese in Hong Kong? Sorry.
They speak Cantonese in Hong Kong.
Okay.
But culturally, I think for official communication, people in Hong Kong prefer English.
Okay.
And I speak Cantonese with an accent, but I can speak Cantonese. But it's a different language from Mandarin, which is the common language used in mainland China. And they can definitely tell that I spoke Cantonese with an accent.
At least you speak Cantonese, good God.
Right.
Yeah.
I barely know one language, so I'm...
Yeah. I do think that's probably why they assigned me to the Hong Kong delegation. It's because I speak Cantonese. Yeah.
You were mentioning earlier that you had a job that is not with a group of other volunteers. So how did you do to actually meet other volunteers and live the experience that you lived? Because I was definitely overwhelmed by the Olympic experience. But what is also very important for me, what was very important, is the slideshow that you're seeing behind me. Is all these other volunteers that you're seeing. This is me on the Seine River, but these other people that you see here, people that I met during the Olympics, and it was crazy to meet them all because we clicked since the first day. I couldn't imagine my experience without these people, because it was really a big part of these 3 weeks. How did you manage to live that experience?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I didn't really get from this experience in Paris was the camaraderie that I definitely enjoyed in Rio. At the diving venue, we were made to feel very included. And I also think part of it is because the personalities of Brazilians they're just so welcoming. They're passionate. Especially in Rio, I think our team leaders, they were very nice people, and they made sure to check in on the volunteers to make sure that they're not hungry, that if they needed water, they would bring water, and if they need extra breaks, they will come in and tell us, go take an extra break. You've been standing here for so long. Here, I definitely didn't really get much of any of that. For most days, if we are being mobilized and going to venues, then we're pretty much on our own. We're going to almost every time I'm going to a different venue. So it's all different people.
Yeah, I see.
I do think that I kind of tap into some of my experience in Rio because I got to know some volunteers there who are, again, volunteering here in Paris. Some of them are Chinese volunteers, and there actually was a group activity organized by Chinese volunteers to meet officially, to have some cup noodles and take a group photo. So it's nice in that way. But
who organized that? Who organized that? Like, was that
another Chinese volunteer who was a driver in the Olympic Village? But I've always been a very international person. I like talking to other people. So other days, if I'm just hanging out and chilling at the volunteer center at the Palais de Congrès, or if I find myself having more time at certain venues, I just go up to people and introduce myself, talk to them. Also because I have lots of pins on my lanyard. So people tend to want to stop me and talk to me and see if I am open to exchanging pins.
Yeah, I see.
So that's nice.
Yeah.
Are you like an Olympic super fan? Or like
I know some Olympic super fans, so I would say no.
Okay.
Yeah.
Compared to them.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, even earlier when you were talking about how you technically have access to all the spectator things, but you couldn't abuse it and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, that's exactly why they wouldn't let me have that access, because I would abuse it.
you would go to every single competition venue and watch every single
I'd be like, put my civilian stuff on, be like, yeah, like I'm not here, I don't know you, I don't volunteer.
They would be like, no, don't give her anything.
Don't give her access to anything. No, we were responsible.
Yeah.
We were responsible.
I mean, I get wanting to be there. Like, I've never actually been to an Olympics, but it's because it's expensive. You know what I mean? Like, that's why.
But maybe in LA. Maybe you can go in LA.
LA 28. That's your opportunity.
Everybody's going to be stuck in a traffic jam. Nobody's going to make it to the Olympics.
Expensive, you guys.
Well, Secretary Pete is trying to improve some of the public transportation, right? There's going to be that train opening between Nevada and California. Yeah.
And they're going to put all the homeless people in jail since now it's a crime to be homeless. So, you know.
Unfortunately.
Would you guys volunteer again? Sorry, I don't know.
I would definitely volunteer for the LA. I will definitely volunteer for the for LA 2028. If I find another group of people volunteering and we can, like, for example, afford an accommodation altogether.
Does that happen actually? That's my other question. Like, do you guys talk before? Did you talk to people before about trying to find
I did not talk to anybody before because this is my first experience. So I did not. But I would definitely do that for LA 2028. And for me, it wasn't a necessity since I was home. So I didn't really need anything from anyone. But in LA 2028, I would definitely have to team up with other volunteers in order to make it happen. Or else it would be like just not possible.
Yeah.
I mean, renting an Airbnb for the whole period.
Yeah, it's going to be expensive.
Patrick messaged me like when you kind of first started, and you were like, Tasha, we should volunteer for LA 2028. It's in America. You should go. And I was like, you realize South Dakota is not that close to LA, right? And he's like, it's closer than Paris.
Yeah, it's closer to Paris. Yeah, see? I'm being scientific. That's scientifically proven. It's closer than Paris.
But also, us Americans, we don't get a whole month off just to go work for free. Like, that's, it would be harder.
I mean, there are paid positions you can probably apply to.
That was my other question. Okay, are there a lot of paid positions?
4,500.
Oh, okay.
Oh, wow. Where did you get that statistics?
In the training.
Okay.
What kind of jobs are paid? You know what I mean? Like, what kind of positions
like
are
our
paid?
managers, like the manager of the volunteers, the manager of let's say we had a diving manager. She was in charge of having all the diving discipline and sport event working fine. So she had volunteers under her responsibility, but she also had other staff members that were probably managing other volunteers or doing stuff of their own. Also the judges, the officials, they were also managers for the site in general, taking care that the site is going properly, all the logistics of the site, not just the discipline, but also the site as an overall. They had also their uniforms. They had like a dark blue uniform, which is also a nice uniform that they had. But they are 4,500 and we are 45,000. So they were staff. They were paid staff. But these people are into sports. They are, like, for example, the diving manager. She's a diver herself and she did competitions. She wanted to be, as an athlete, part of Paris 2024, but she did not get selected at the very end. But she wanted to live her dream and be part of the Olympics. She applied as a staff for Paris 2024 for diving, and she got it, and she was very thrilled to go through Paris 2024 because she wouldn't be able to do any Olympics later on as an athlete, but she wanted to be part of an Olympic competition. So she did that, but from a different perspective. She says, and I think she did, realize her dream.
Those that can't do manage.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm just kidding. I'm not good at anything. So
and a shout out to her if she ever sees this podcast. Madeleine, she took care of us very well. Like, she took care of all the volunteers in a very beautiful way, as well as all the people that reported to her. Marilia, she's a star. Marilia.
Yeah.
And did you have a manager? Was there a manager for your team, or were
she was the one taking care of the sport information desk. Marilia, she was paid staff.
As volunteers, did you get any inside scoop? Like, let's say you didn't have access to everywhere, but did you ever get inside scoop on like tickets or
That's another thing.
I didn't.
Volunteer benefits wise, I think Rio was better.
Yeah.
Comparing to Paris.
Yeah. What did you get? What did you have in Rio?
In Rio, yeah. So in addition to the same kind of thing, we get 4 like volunteer jerseys. We get 2 pants, a jacket. We also got a raincoat.
Okay.
We also got free tickets to see certain competitions if
Oh.
those tickets are not if those events are not sold out, which I don't think Paris did at all. Like,
well, they did for the Paralympics.
yeah,
now.
we just received some emails
Yeah.
like a couple days ago that they want to give us a ticket to see the Paralympics.
Yeah.
But I'm not
Not the
going to
same
be
thing.
here.
You're not gonna.
Yeah,
A lot of volunteers actually left because
And
there were some free seats in the Olympics as well. I mean, it wasn't sold out the whole time.
Yeah.
But it was probably for like
Yeah, in terms of amount
I
of
would
money.
was
see
no way
anything
for-
if they give me free tickets.
Give you
Archery
tickets,
is
right?
fun to me.
Yeah.
Oh,
Would
the
you
others.
volunteer again? Then? Sorry, I want to know if
sorry,
you volunteer
yeah.
again.
I mean, I would volunteer again, but I would like now from this experience and yours, I would make sure that, for example, I would like specify. I would be very specific in what I'm asking, because I want to be part of the field of play, or I want to be part of the entrance of the athletes. I want to be in touch with the athletes. I do not want to be driving a car. I do not want to be managing transportation. And again, shout out to all these people, because these were the hardest jobs as a volunteer to do.
But that lady with an umbrella, that lady who held up the umbrella.
I invited her to be part of this podcast,
Oh,
but she
really?
did not answer.
Oh no.
I invited
like,
her
I'm
and I invited Danielle, the other guy, the guy. I sent them a message on Instagram. I did not have any feedback.
they're
So-
probably getting so many DMs.
I know from my
people way
small little
cooler than us.
podcast here. I mean, they probably didn't even look at my Instagram, because they are getting, probably solicitations from radio stations and broadcasting companies.
She
But
can't use her arm to type on Instagram anymore. She's probably like.
she did an interview
"On
with
arrête maladie."
Combini. She already
Yeah.
did an interview with Combini, which is a French press on
Oh.
social media. So, but still, I would have hoped they would,
Yeah.
free up a couple of hours
Fellow
from their
volunteer.
time. Yeah, but probably next time.
And would you volunteer again then?
Yes.
Okay.
The short answer is yes. But of course, how I make that decision will be depending on what I'm assigned to
Yeah, same here.
and what my financial situation is going to be like. Bunch
mean-
of
So
factors.
even if you get accepted, you can then say like, nope, can't do it. That's why there's a wait list, because some people probably drop out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, unfortunately, get accepted, and they don't say no, even though they know for sure that they do not want to do this job. But they just, radio silence until they get their uniforms. And until they get their welcome gifts. And then all of a
I
sudden,
know what I'm doing.
all of a sudden,
That's a great idea. Wait,
okay,
that's a great idea.
I want to send a direct message to the Olympic Committee, pointing Natasha out. Do not accept her, because look what she's saying. You're being
I'm
recorded.
just in it for the bucket hat.
And I bet LA is going to be great. This is going to be, but I want to do it. I'll do it. We'll do it. We'll change our names.
Yeah, which is
I mean, it's expected, right? For any sort of volunteering event, there are going to be people who sign up and then they only show up to collect the benefits, and
Yeah.
then they don't
I mean,
do anything. Yeah.
Come on. I mean, how
You
can you
guys are
do
being
that?
exploited already, so you might as well exploit them at least a little bit.
No, but I didn't feel I was exploited. That's the difference,
Yeah.
A lot of people, like when we walk in the streets with our volunteer uniforms, a lot of people would stop us and say, the majority would say, yes, good, great job, bravo, you're doing that,
Yeah.
perfect. A minority would still come to you and say, do you do this for free?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
I was like, what? Why? I mean, I'm doing it because I love doing that. I'm loving the experience. I'm in one of the most, if it's not the most important international event of the world.
Yeah.
So how can you say why? I mean,
I totally get why you did it, because you, like you said, you could come home at night. But it seems like you said, even you being there for a month, there is an expense to it. If it's if somehow the Olympics came to Sioux Falls, South Dakota, I would for sure volunteer, but I don't think that's going to happen, just because, I mean, if it was closer or easier to stay home.
What makes you volunteer? What is the strong, motive?
I mean, the strongest motive is definitely that I just enjoy volunteering. Volunteerism is one of my deepest passions. And I do lots of different volunteering work. This summer worked out that I could come here for a month. Yeah. So that's why I did it. I originally didn't think I was going to be able to.
What is the average age, would you say, of the volunteers?
I think there are two major demographics for Olympic volunteers. I think there are a lot of college students, which makes sense because they have time off in the summer. Yeah. And retired people, so that you see an older demographic as well. Yeah,
that makes sense.
We had from both ends, and we have. I mean, in the aquatic center, at least, I'm talking about things I know. We had from literally every single kind of age range. It was very diversified, coming from a lot of different areas in France and a lot of different areas in the world. Also, full parity, women, men from different backgrounds, different countries, different age. I really thought that it was really very diversified, so it was very interesting when it comes to that, especially that we had to work together, so it was very enriching when it comes to culture. When you work in a competition venue, you work as a team, and also you have lunch with them. We had lunch, we had dinner, we had breakfast, we made friends, and with these people we went out in Paris and we hang out. It was very enriching when it comes to the human experience, to go back to that topic. And I would definitely do volunteer again in order to experience that again in a different country, but also to relive these moments. The Olympic vibe, being part from the inside of this experience was very enriching. And, it made me proud to be, when I see the result on TV, it made me proud to say, I did that, I put this here, I arranged that. Because we were working off camera, and all the things that you see on camera is done by, us. The staff that is paid, they are not enough in terms of numbers. So they really relied on us as volunteers. Yeah, it was really this army of volunteers that worked several shifts during the day that made all of this happen, or at least contributed heavily in making these Olympics a success, from the opening ceremony, even before the opening ceremony, because I started working a week before the opening ceremony for trainings. So from that moment until the closing ceremony, and even after, a lot of volunteers are still working now, for delegations until their delegation leave, or I don't know. We worked, but we were given the opportunity to live this experience from the inside, and it's not every day that you live an Olympics from the inside, and it's also not every day that you do it in Paris.
Are there different volunteers for Paralympics then?
It depends. When we applied, you either mentioned that you're willing to volunteer for the Olympics only, or the Paralympics only, or both, right?
Yeah. For me, I was only offered the Olympic positions, so I didn't get an offer for Paralympics.
I only mentioned that I'm only available for the Olympics, so the question of the Paralympics was not even put on the table.
I really would love to do Paralympics volunteering as well.
You would have stayed?
Yeah, if they told me in advance, so I could have planned the trip better, I would have done it. Yeah. But didn't work out this time, but hopefully, LA. Yeah.
I mean, overall,
LA 2028.
Yeah,
let's go.
Yeah.
So that's
California.
So again, California. All of this being said, when I finished my last shift last Saturday, I traveled directly after my shift to Spain because, Tasha's name, because I couldn't even imagine, staying home and by myself and living the end of this experience by myself without being, entertained by other people or by friends or things like that, or even being on vacation. My experience was so intense on all kinds of ways that it was, definitely not possible to go back home alone that night. So very, very positive feedback. I'll definitely do it again.
Do you have a little bit of post-Olympic depression? All this was going on and then it just stopped?
I kind of had that. After it all ended, I spent a couple of days, 3 days, being very, very sad. I think my friends saw it when I was on vacation. So yeah, they saw it and they were like, okay, he's not doing well, so we're gonna try to cheer him up. But now I'm getting just the positive vibes. No, I'm starting to get just the positive vibes of this experience and the memories, the positive memories. I'm starting to forget, the fact that it all ended and so on.
Yeah. It would be hard to do that for, basically a month of your life and then it's just over. And
because for a month my life was all about that. When I was working for the Olympics, it was really like taking my mind out of everything else. It was like I was like half of a day. I was really like from, let's say, depending on my shift and shift hours, when I was working for the Olympics, it was everything else did not exist anymore. Just like the feeling that we get when French people, when we are on vacation, where we cut off everything from the from our from our real life.
I don't know what that's like, but okay.
So yeah, that was my feeling literally at every shift. So that's what made the experience very intense.
A lot of athletes say that too. Like they work for this thing and then when the Olympics are over, they kind of don't know what to do with themselves. It's like
a lot of emotions also on the athletes' part. I mean, when they come, we were trained to accompany them, especially my job as a sport information desk member. Since we are the first people who that they will see when they arrive to the venue, we needed to welcome them with a smile, accompany them in the best way possible, because these athletes have worked 4 years, 5 years, 6 years to be
their
here,
whole
life to be here today. So if they need to see someone that is smiling and that is working with them in a very positive way. So that was my job. You see them focused, you see them stressed out, you see them happy if they win a competition, but you also see them crying. And that's very heartbreaking when you see an athlete finishing his competition and then I would see him like getting out of the field of play or arriving to the entrance of the athletes to take his bus back to the Olympic Village, but you would see him literally crying knowing that he's a superstar athlete. It's so touching to see that actually we're in the middle of this. Spectators do not see that. The viewers on TV do not see that. Being close to them to that extent, able to live their feelings, whether it's positive feelings or negative feelings. It was interesting to live. Competition is a competition. There are winners and there are people that are not winning. But
they're all Olympians, so they're not
they're
losers.
all Olympians,
Like, they're all,
obviously. And that's what actually their coaches would tell them, when they start crying. And there's a video that went viral with the one British athlete, a diver. She's a diver. Her coach was telling her, you did what you have to do. You're here. You're one of the most, known divers in the world because you're here. And stop crying. And sometimes you win and sometimes you lose. And this is the sports and this is how it goes. There's also a Mexican diver. She slipped, I guess, while diving. She raised her hands after the dive and she claimed that there was a flash that disturbed her. The judges, they judged that there were no flash. They did not give her a redive opportunity. And obviously, since she was doing very good and she just missed that dive, and all the 4 other dives were really perfectly good dives, capable of allowing her to be qualified for the semifinal or the finals. But since she missed that 5th dive, she was not qualified anymore. And that made her really very upset. And she was like totally crying. Like she was unconsolable. You live the emotions of the athletes as well. Not just yours, but also the emotions of the athlete.
So obviously you saw Tom Daley being in the diving
of course
thing. Did you know who he was before that?
I knew because he became, apart from being a diver, he became also a social media influencer.
Yeah.
And there's a picture here that we're going to see in the slideshow with French divers, Alexis Gendard, Julien Bouillet, and Gwendal, like this one. Alexis, Julien, and Gwendal, and I'm here. So these are the French divers from the French team.
No picture with the Team USA? I mean, I thought Team USA...
Yeah, we were not allowed to take pictures with the athletes. So this picture was actually a request from the divers themselves because they, the security officer asked them for a picture, even though he was not allowed to. So they took a picture with him. And then when they saw me being there, they said, okay, come on in as well. So I took
you can't ask, but if they ask...
You're actually meant to be discreet because you want the athletes to come to you and because imagine 45,000 volunteer going to all these athletes and requesting, signatures and autographs and selfies
This is also why I'd be a bad volunteer.
Yeah, that's I
would
guess.
want pictures and stuff.
I mean,
I'd
the
be like,
purpose is to be respectful.
The purpose
right?
is to be respectful.
Yeah.
Exactly.
right.
And give them space.
Yeah. So like, don't harass
Your
them
thumbnail
to ask for
picture was
pictures.
funny, though.
But if they would love to take pictures,
If they're
with you,
fine with it, they let you know that they're fine with it, then
Yeah.
there's no problem. But we're professionally, it's better. We have to give them their space.
Right.
But I'm not saying all the volunteers were abiding by this rule. I mean, a lot of volunteers were actually being all over the athletes, and sometimes we needed to calm them down. And so and we called security once because volunteers came from
How'd
a different.
that person get through the clearances?
Because they had the access like you did because they had access to the village, so they had access to all the.
Oh, so they went to the village.
So they came to our competition site because they had the access that said all.
Okay.
So when their team win the competition, we saw them coming to the entrance of the athletes, and we cannot tell them not to be here because technically with their accreditation they can be here.
Okay.
They're
Even
allowed
the
to.
entrance of the athletes?
They did not get in.
Oh, it was
but
right
they
outside
were
of it.
right outside of it. So they
Right.
are allowed to be inside the venue.
Okay.
But they're not allowed to be inside the building and enter from the entrance of the athletes.
Yeah.
Okay, this is true. But they were standing outside and waiting for the athletes to get outside.
Mm-hmm.
The first time it happened, we were not prepared. So it was a Chinese athlete. She went out when she went.
I think I might have seen a TikTok video about this.
You saw that? Yeah. So the Chinese athlete went out, and then she was like, a bunch of volunteers just jumped on her, asking for different things, and she was overwhelmed because she didn't expect that to happen here at the entrance of the athletes, because we're not supposed to have people cheering or anything. Like it was supposed to be just like literally just them and me,
right? Not
and
even
me
media,
or my colleagues.
Right? Yeah.
She was surprised. She went back in the building. The volunteers could not follow her because they were not allowed to get in. So we had to call security, but then they didn't want to leave. And we couldn't make them leave because they have the right to be there. So with other volunteers from my team and also my managers, we tried to make a path, create a path, like a human path from the entrance of the building all the way to the entrance of the bus so that she could get in. So she did that. And then once she got on the bus,
she's Taylor Swift.
the other volunteers that came, like the Chinese volunteers, they followed her in the bus. So this is when she went out of the bus and she started screaming and yelling at them, and that was the only thing that calmed them down. And we had to send a message to the Olympic Village saying, please take care of your volunteers and do not send them to the competition venues like that. Ask them where they're going and tell them that you're not allowed to go and make a crowd in front of the entrance of the athletes. It's not possible. So some problems happened like that, but I mean it happened once, twice, and then we managed to have more security at the end of the big competitions, so we were able to manage.
Gotcha.
That's another reason I don't want to abuse my access, especially since Chinese culture is very much a community culture. Yeah. Even though I know that every volunteer is responsible for their own behavior, when you do something like this and it gets released on social media, people would say that, oh, you're giving the Chinese volunteers a bad name. In the future, if people see it's a volunteer applying from China, it might be harder for everybody. Yeah. I don't know if it holds any water, but I don't want to be that person, right?
It could be China, it could be any other volunteer country, but in that specific case, it was Chinese volunteers for the Chinese athletes. But it could have been any other country and any other volunteer. So I see what you mean.
Yeah, I've definitely seen U.S. volunteers also going after certain athletes.
Yeah, and I did that. I saw that too. I think it would be mainly in countries where Olympics is a huge deal. Like U.S., France, China. I mean these.
Yeah, China, U.S. have two biggest
China,
teams.
U.S.
That makes sense.
And especially us in diving, I was mentioning China. It's because China won everything. Like all the golden medals were won by China. And
those athletes are probably a really big deal in China.
Exactly, and that's why it was Chinese in my case, but it could have been in other competition venues. It could have been another nationality,
but Simone Biles to us or something.
Yeah. Within diving as an event, China is definitely the country to beat. Yeah.
So Okay, so that concludes our experience as as volunteers. Dasha, Teresa, thank you for your questions. We were able to answer your questions, I hope, and I had some questions to you, and you had some questions to me as well. It was very interesting to share all of this. I hope you guys enjoyed these stories that I got to talk about
behind the scenes
story that you got to talk about as well from behind the scenes. If it was interesting to you, then imagine how interesting it was to us. Thank you very much for being here. That was the end of the segment 3, Paris Olympics from the eyes of the volunteers. Segment 4 will be talking about the Olympics Paris 2024 from the view of Natasha's couch mainly. We will be talking about the opening ceremony. We will be talking about a lot of the competitions that happened, some of the results, because Tasha would be able to say USA and tell us and remind us that they won the most medal count. And we will also be talking about the closing ceremony and so on. So stay tuned.
Bye.
See you in the next episode, Pengies.